I'm Julie, I'm the library director. Most of you probably know me already. So who here remembers 1990? It was an awesome year, wasn't it? It was the year they broke ground on the existing library. And it was 25 years ago when that construction began. And the official population of the Plainfield Library District in 1990 was just over 14,000 people. And there were 5 schools in District 202. Today, the library serves over 75,000 people, and there are 30 schools in District 202. We are serving our 5 times as many patrons with that same 27,000 square foot building that we broke ground on in 1990. When we opened that building, the library had 2 word processing computers. We still had typewriters for public use. Our collections included cassettes and VHS tapes. Modern email didn't even exist. And today, not only do we have dozens of public computers, we provide more than 23,000 hours of public computing time annually. We also provide Wi-Fi and power for people to bring their own devices to the library, something never envisioned in 1990. Our formats today include DVD, Blu-ray, MP3, ebooks, e-audiobooks, streaming video, streaming audio, e-readers, Rokus, things that we could never have planned on. But libraries are about access, and format is just one more point of access. We just have many, many more points of access than we did in 1990. The library's physical collection is not as much of a focus. We now have over 200,000 items in the library collection, and that is only possible because we don't have to physically house them all. People are using libraries so much differently today than they did 25 years ago. Librarians are often asked, why do we need libraries in the internet age? Well, the internet can't provide you personalized help and hands-on instruction like a 21st century library can. In 1990, we did 2,500 reference questions answered. In 2015, we did over 56,000 questions answered. 25 times as many questions answered now in the internet age. Today's questions are more complex than ever before because that easy answer is on the first page of Google and you found it yourself. The complex questions, the things that require a lot more hand-holding, hands-on instruction, and help, that's what your librarian is there for. Classes and programs are another huge part of 21st century library services. 1993 was actually the first year that the library collected any kind of program attendance statistics, and they only counted kids. And they had about 2,200 kids come to programs at the library in 1993. In 2015, we had over 50,000 people attend a library program somewhere in Plainfield. And that is 22 times as many people attending a library program. 25 times as many questions answered, 22 times as many people coming to programs. That's what 21st century library services are all about. 21st century library service focuses on continuous learning, on content creation, on making connections between people and among their community. With a smartphone in your pocket that is more powerful than the 1990 supercomputer, people today need help keeping up with the fast-paced changes in technology. They need a place to connect and a place to collaborate, a place to make things and share things. 21st century public libraries are community centers for the way we live today. And our library's been doing a great job in this tiny little building. So what's the urgency? Why do we need this today? Well, it's the age and the condition of the current library building that are forcing this to the forefront. Yeah, it looks good. If you just look at the surface, it looks just fine. But after 25 years of hard use as a public building, the cost of simply keeping it functional continues to rise. Numerous building systems and pieces of equipment are past their expected useful life. They are failing on a regular basis. If this proposed building and expansion project fails at the March ballot, addressing those costly long-term repairs and replacements to keep the building functional will cut into the funds and the space available for library service, reducing them even further. The scope of work needed to keep the building operational in long term triggers compliance with today's building codes. The cost of that compliance is high, both in dollars and in space. An estimated more than $10 million would be required to make the urgent repairs to this existing 25-year-old building within the current building envelope to reach full compliance. And to do that, we would have to cut both services and the amount of public space available to just keep the building open. An example, our current boiler room. The boiler, the water heater, and the main electrical panel. I can touch all three. I'm not very tall. To meet today's codes, that area needs a minimum distance between those pieces of equipment and a physical separation. This would necessitate enlarging the area, building walls, repiping, rewiring, and in order to do that, we would have to draw from public space, further reducing what we can do in the building today. The building was built before Americans with Disabilities Act was required for public building. That entry and vestibule does not meet today's ADA standards. Those aisle widths are too small. If you've ever tried to pass two strollers in the entryway, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And this happens a lot in our library. To redesign that entryway to meet ADA compliance within our existing building envelope, again, we would have to draw from the public space for actual library services to make that happen. We do not have any sort of loading dock. There is no ADA accessible staff entrance. Our accessibility issues with this building are many. Approval for the proposed plan at the March 15th primary election would avoid reductions to library services and in our public space to keep this building functioning long term. Covering the magnitude of repair costs and without increasing the funds available to the library with a referendum would require more than 20% cuts in today's operating budget. To put that in perspective, the library's budget today, 78% of that budget is staff and library materials. Only 22% of our budget is everything else. So a 20% cut would be devastating to the services that we have today. The results of the March 15th, 2016 primary election will determine the direction of future planning by the library board. We're hoping that there will be a way to avoid these cuts. But we're here today to answer any questions that you may have and to answer any questions you may get from your constituents, our shared constituents. Our goal here is to inform our residents of the plan, how it was developed, why we're moving forward now, and to help you get the answers that you need. I hope you can help us by sharing this information with our citizens to make sure that they have the opportunity to get their questions answered before Election Day on March 15th. And feel free to ask me questions. I am a librarian. Access to information and answering questions is what I do. So, fire away.
First off, I want to thank you, Julie and Carl, and the entire team from Niagara Park Trade that came on out tonight to present this information to the board and to the community. It was very informational and very in-depth, and I'm walking away with a much greater appreciation myself for everything that you've put into this effort. that, I'll turn it over to the board, see if there are any questions. There might not be, because we did start off by saying we don't particularly care to wade into other taxing jurisdictions' waters, but there are some questions from the board that they might be hearing from their constituents or to answer any questions they get presented.
I agree with Brian. It's a fascinating tour, and it's going to be on YouTube. I highly recommend people take a look at it because there's a lot more depth and explanation of things that have been questions that I've heard, and I think a lot of those questions are getting answered. One question, which you sort of touched on, but you went from 90,000, which I assume was some sort of arbitrary target that you thought would work, down to 72,000 now. We're still talking about maximum flexibility going forward. What did you sacrifice to get from 90 to 72?
A lot of the, one of the things that we glossed over was all of the work by Anders Dahlgren, the library building consultant who was not here with us tonight. Anders went through statistics nationwide, regionally, statewide, and put our library in the perspective of, where do we fit within all of these categories, and where do we want to be? Our board does not want us to have the biggest library for our community size. No, that's not who we are. We wanted something that was pretty middle of the road for the area that we serve. Because that's what our constituents see, that's what they're used to. They're used to suburban Chicago area. So we really were focused on the standards for Illinois public libraries. It's called Serving Our Public 3.0. And the square footage per capita is 1 square foot per capita is the standard in the state of Illinois. That puts our library need today at 75,000 square feet, with population projection to be over 100,000 in 20 years, so needing over 100,000 square feet. By the same token, as libraries are going to more virtual services, there is a small reduction in the amount of need, and that reduction is about 1 to 2% to a physical collection per year. But our population is growing at about 1 to 2% per year. So one of the ways we were able to offset that planning need was to say, okay, we're going to be able to continue to reduce the physical collection. We'll need a little bit less, but we'll have more people. So we'll need a little more total space. That's where that flexible and efficient floor plan comes in, to be able to redesign, readapt what we're using within the building, how we're using that space. And it's something that we've frankly gotten very good at, because our library is way too small today. So finding those compatible needs for a single space. I think what Nagel Hartrade did for us with finding a way to make 3 meeting rooms into the one big event space and make it actually functional for us is a huge way that we can further reduce what that overall space need is. Some of the other little things are things like you just increase how much of each shelf you're actually using in the beginning. Makes you have to shift things around more frequently. But.
Talk more about the projections for the future as far as the population growth. I know we talked about, or you guys have talked about the past and now current, but there was little on the future. What your projections are for 10 and 20 years out as far as population and use?
The 20-year projection for population for our library district is approximately 109,000 folks. And you probably do know that the library district is larger than the village of Plainfield. We encompass the village. We also have Romeoville, that is in Plainfield Township, Bolingbrook, that is in Wheatland Township, all of unincorporated Plainfield Township and most of unincorporated Wheatland Township. And so it's quite the dance to put together all of the different population projections.
I'd like to thank you and Carl and the Nagel Hartrade people for coming out tonight. And, every vote counts, so anybody who's watching, go out to the ballot box.
In 2009, that particular election, that spring election, was one of our record low voter turnouts in Plainfield.
There was a lot of talk earlier about all the windows in the building, and I guess from layman's perspective, I would just say it looks like a beautifully designed building. Thank you very much for that. The one question that I did have was in regards to the sustainability. Was there any plans or talks about having a LEED certified type of building to have additional, sustainable attributes as part of that?
That all has to be proven out going forward. We approach all of our buildings with sustainable design in mind. Whether the owner chooses to go through the LEED certification process is something a little bit different. We will definitely be energy modeling and so forth. We'll start out looking at LEED. There is a little bit of a cost to achieve certain LEED ratings. Usually you can save that money in the long run in operating costs, and it's kind of a balance that we'll try and sort out with the library. But we're anticipating that we want to pursue a sustainable building.
Well, this is a very informative presentation, very well done, a beautiful concept. I've not heard personally a lot of questions, but Julie, where do you want to put out there where people can go if they do have specific questions? I'm sure you have a frequently asked questions page on the library site or something where people can get informed.
Yes, the library's website is plainfieldpubliclibrary.org. On the left-hand side in the quick links box, you'll see building and expansion planning. Just click on that, and on that page you will find literally every piece from our entire planning process. If you scroll down to the bottom and work your way up, you can actually walk through the entire planning process, one document and one section at a time. But also available there are a timeline that includes where library representatives will be throughout the community in the upcoming weeks, including some special drop-in Q&A where I will be available in the library to talk about the project and to answer any questions people have. There is also an online questions form right there, so if you have your question, you can just shoot it off to the library and we will answer you. And then there is an FAQ section, and any of those questions that we get in, we try to add those to the FAQ, so it's already pretty long.
Thank you.
You guys also sent out a mailer, it looks like, was it every resident in the district?
Yes, yes, we did.
Very informative.
Thank you. We did the first special edition newsletter came to homes in the middle of January. There will be a second special edition newsletter that will be going to homes hopefully right about the time early voting starts in very early February. It's already at the printers, so it looks good. Got some nice infographics in there.
I just want to thank you for your presentation. It's very informative. Your model, is that going to be in the foyer of the library? And will there be someone there if there is questions?
Well, we don't have enough room in the actual foyer.
Well, another thing, as
That would
long as
be
the other
perfect.
gentlemen carry it.
It will be up at the top of the stairs, right across from the checkout desk, on top of the DVD shelves. That's where it's living these days. And there are the copies of the newsletter available there. I will be, as I said, available at certain times for the public drop-in Q&A sessions. We have some bulletin boards with more information around the library, and you can always ask staff whenever you're in whatever questions you have. They're pretty good at answering. Again, we're librarians. That's what we do.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate taking the time.